Hi everyone, it's me, it's Hedda, and I would like to wish you a very happy Yom Tov. I hope you've all had a lovely weekend. Um, you know, I've had a relatively hassle-free weekend. Half of it in bed because my back was playing me up, but it is what it is. I want to start off by apologising for the state of my hair. I've done something which is very usual for me. I put a treatment on my hair. I forgot to read the instructions and I've left it on my hair too long. It contains a lot of Moroccan argan oil and I think I either put too much on or what, and I've washed it and tried to sort it out, and time's ticking on over here in the UK. So I didn't want to mess with it any longer. I just wanted to get on and talk to you. So I hope everybody is fine today. Welcome all new people. Hello to everybody. If you're new here, this is our haven. You're very, very welcome. Hello to everyone who is just here, and thank you all for being here. Right, I've got, you know how I like to talk to you about life experiences, and to be quite honest with you, how life experiences, when they're not particularly nice, can affect you, whether it be emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. And today is going to be a little bit longer. I'm not going to make it more than half an hour. That's an absolute promise. I will keep an eye on the time. But I wanted to talk to you again a little bit about the video that I made on Saturday, which was, and unfortunately I'm going to have to mention his name again, but I'm definitely not putting it in the title this time. The Antics of the Rewired Soul, and why I was just so disgusted at some of the, well, just basically what he'd done with regard to I think it was Desmond Amofa. I think that's what his name was. Please forgive me if I've messed your name up, Desmond. I didn't mean to. Otherwise known as Atika. I think that using his face over 4 videos, as I later discovered, 4 videos about that boy. You know, 1 is bad. 2 is basically, what are you thinking of? And then you get to 4, and then you just realise, all I could think of was, he'll just be sitting there thinking, ka-ching, ka-ching. And I'm sorry, that is what he's known for. He said in a live stream that I actually was present, and I know other people can back me up on this, where he said that he didn't want to have a boss anymore. He wanted to be his own boss. He only wanted to work for himself. He didn't like the thought of working for someone or having someone over him telling him what to do. So YouTube was an ideal outlet for him, and his joy when he reached 100,000 was palpable. And then, of course, the big scandal broke and he lost, you know, not practically overnight, but it was pretty quick. He lost a good 20,000 subscribers. And, of course, he was not a happy bunny. And he blamed drama channels. He blamed the world and his wife for his troubles. And for all he came on and said sorry, he wasn't fooling anybody. He was just sorry that he'd been caught. And that's my opinion. And as you know, opinions are not facts. They are just opinions, personal opinions. And my personal opinion is, he's only sorry that he got caught. And, you know, his bubble was well and truly burst for him because drama channels went digging, particularly my friend Elle of Elle Loves Tea. And she was able to find out things about that man and his mother, which just about shocked me to the core. And to think that he was doing all the things that he was doing, I thought nobody could ever stoop that low. I honestly didn't think he could. And I mentioned at the time, you know, 17 videos on Trisha Paytas was just about crazy. But of course, he's now back to making videos about her again. And nobody can stop him. He's virtually unstoppable. He just goes from one abhorrent... Oh, I'm sorry, I just don't have the words. He just goes on from one disgusting scenario to the next, as far as I'm concerned. If he had just stuck to what he knew and talked about his own life experiences, I don't know whether he would have got the amount of subscribers that he has. It's not, as I've learned, it's not the subscriber count that matters, it's the views that matter when it comes to when you're being monetized. Of course, I don't have that problem, so I'm never going to be monetized, so it's not anything that I ever need worry about. Obviously, I would worry if I lost subscribers because I would take that in on myself. I would think, well, what have I done wrong that people are leaving? But it's got its ups and downs, doesn't it? There may be things I say that people don't like. They may not like the particular direction I'm taking. They might like it if I spoke about more drama-focused topics all the time. But I can't do that. I like to have you lead me as to what you would like. And so far, you're telling me what you'd like. And I'm hopefully trying to give you that in the best way I know how. But I still need guidance from you all. Like I said, I am going to be talking to you today about some life experiences that I've had. And it's not going to be easy for me. And for some of you, it won't be easy for you either. So I apologise now and in advance if I say anything that upsets anyone. But I just wanted you to know that I have been through certain experiences, and I wanted to share with you how they'd affected me, and to more or less say, look, to a certain extent, I've managed to come out through the other side. I want to try and show you that it's not just a platitude. Time is a great healer. And I mean, there are certain things that, you know, we go through in life, all of us, that are extremely stressful. And they reckon the most stressful things are a death, a divorce, a house move, either starting a new job or leaving a job or being made redundant, something like that. These are huge, huge life experiences that have their own way of, you know, making us feel and bringing to forth our coping mechanisms, whether or not we do flight or do we do fight. In a lot of my cases, in my head, I've wanted to do the flight thing and just run. But because of situations that I've been in, I've always had to fight. Always. There's just no two ways about it. I've had to fight because 9 times out of 10 there was only me there to rely on. And that's just how it was. So the reason why I got so upset about Atika, even though I didn't know him, I keep thinking about his parents and how they must be feeling. And I think what the Rewired Soul did, I think he showed the utmost disrespect to Atika's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Amofa. It was 4 videos on that boy, and there was absolutely no need. He could have made one, maybe mentioned him in the title of the video, maybe, or say something like, my thoughts on the passing of a young YouTuber, and we all would have known who he was mentioning. He certainly didn't have to have his face, not once, but twice in the thumbnail. It just seemed to me it was screaming, view me, view me, view me, and like I said, ka-ching, ka-ching. And I thought he'd only put out a couple of videos. I didn't realise till later that it was 4. So you can imagine my fury and my upset, because I have been through some very hard times with my own son. And really what does get me now, the phrase, we were in a dark place. I'm frightened about saying that now for fear of being ridiculed, because recently it's been sort of trotted out like some kind of get out of jail free card. I was in a dark place. James Charles, I was in a dark place. Excuse me. Jeffree Star, I was in a dark place. Tati, I was in a dark place. Now don't get me wrong, I love Tati to bits. And I think she is a genuine woman. And I think when she said it, she genuinely felt she was in a dark place. Jeffree, I don't know. James Charles, to him it was just an excuse, because as soon as him and his ilk get caught in some drama, they literally bring their mental health into it like a get out of jail free card. So you can't come at me, I've got depression. You can't come at me, I've got anxiety. But they're not showing any signs of this depression or anxiety at any other time. So that to me makes a mockery of all of us trying to fight the stigma of coming out and saying, I have depression, I have anxiety, I have agoraphobia, I have panic attacks, things like that. It's so hard trying to get the world to just accept us for having bouts of depression. Now, I do get bad bouts of depression. I've told you about this before. And sometimes it feels as if it's just swallowing me whole. And sometimes past events creep up and bite me in the backside. And it's like they're going, I'm still here, you know. You can't lock me up in a box for long. You've got to let me out and breathe every now and again. And when that tends to happen is when I heard what the Rewired Soul had done, and a couple of people were following what appeared to be following in his footsteps, and that's why I was so disappointed. Because I'm sure those people didn't mean any harm by it. I'm just disappointed in the way I went about it, that's all. But it brought back memories of me when I genuinely was in a very dark place with my own son. And the first time was when he was 10. And the last time was when he was, well, let me try and put it into a nutshell. From all the psychiatric input that he's had, the psychiatrist told me on a one-to-one session, just me and him, that my son definitely has suicidal tendencies, and that he is the sort to just go and do it. He won't say anything to anybody. He'll just go ahead and do it. And when I was told that, it hit me like a hammer blow. It was like someone had just hit me in the skull between the eyes, and I'd just gone and divided into two. And he'd tried to throw himself off some scaffolding. He was only caught by a member of the school staff by grabbing his collar and yanking him back. And when I talked to him about it later, he just said, I didn't see what the point was anymore. I couldn't take anymore. And I just wanted to go. And I think he's got a basic understanding of it now. But at the time, with his Asperger's syndrome, he couldn't empathise how it would affect me. And I think he's got an understanding of it now. But the first time he tried to hang himself. Anyway, if I get ridiculed for it, I get ridiculed for it. We were in an extremely dark place. And when I saw the Rewired Soul take advantage of a Tika, I just had this knee-jerk reaction and made the video on Saturday and said what I had to say. And to be honest with you, it's been on my mind ever since. And I just wanted to actually send you a big cheers, l'chaim, to life. I've got a nice glass of Echo Falls rosé. So, like I say, in Hebrew we say to life, l'chaim. Now, you all know that I've been through a really bad divorce. But I haven't talked to you about the miscarriages I've had. And I do know that I've spoken to some of you in the comments who have said, would I talk about this? So I've got 12 minutes left, so I'll get it done as quickly as I can, as succinctly as I can. It took me a long time to fall pregnant with my daughter. It took 6 years. And eventually, when I did get pregnant with her, as you know, I reconciled with my husband because I didn't want to bring up a child as a single mum. He was not a hands-on parent. And there was, you know, as a mum, I'm bound to say this, aren't I? There was never a child more loved than my daughter. She literally was my world. She was my universe. And still is. But when I've got this tiny little human being in my hand, and I'm thinking, I grew you. You're mine. You always will be mine. And I might have to share you one day, but, you know, for the time being, you're mine. And I swore to her, even as a newborn, that I would never be the kind of mother to her that mine was to me. And I made lots of mistakes, mind. I really have. I didn't really have anyone to teach me. My ex-monster-in-law was absolutely no good. She didn't have any faith in me as a mother at all. But it was just a case, I think it might be some of the looks I gave her. She probably sort of learned to back off quite quickly, because I tend to be a little bit vicious from time to time, as we mothers tend to be, don't we? Anyway, when my daughter was 2.5, I told the ex that I wanted to have another child. And that would have been something like, in the Catholic faith, I know it's called an Immaculate Conception, because we weren't getting along in any form. So he'd sort of said, well, if it isn't going to happen, you know, if it's going to take as long as it did the first time, then yeah, he was agreeing to it, as long as it was understood that if I did get pregnant, then I would be solely responsible for the two of them. He'd provide for them, but I was to look after them. That was it. I agreed. 3 months later, to my absolute delight, I found out that I was pregnant. And I was absolutely on cloud 9. And, you know, you get to your 12 weeks and you think you're safe. And I remember sitting my little girl on my knee and saying to her, Mummy's got a baby growing in her tummy. And, you know, you're going to have a little brother or a little sister. And she was, you know, well, where is it, Mummy? And can I see it now? And all the things, you know, that, you know, little ones do. So anyway, that was that. And I got to 16 weeks and I had to have a scan done because I seemed to be bigger than I should have been, and to find out I was having twins. And yeah, they were little girls. So I remember being doubly delighted. I mean, I was so happy. And then it would have been about 2 or 3 weeks later, I started feeling sort of like unwell and dragging pains and this sort of thing. Called the doctor, and he came out, and unfortunately I was bleeding. So he said that, you know, how long have you been bleeding for? And I said, well, I didn't know, but I'm feeling very uncomfortable down below. And he examined me and he went, we really need to get you to the hospital now. So I was taken by ambulance to our local hospital, and I was given a scan, and they tidied me up, and I kept having this awful urge just to urinate, and I remember doing so and then cramping really badly, and then the doctor sort of came and looked, and she said, you have got to lie flat. We're going to get you up to a ward, put you into bed, and you've got to lie flat. And I said, you know, is there something wrong? And she said, unfortunately, the pain and everything that you've been having, I'm afraid you've lost one of the babies. And I did feel something happening, you know. I mean, it was painful, but I had so much dragging pain at the back. It just seemed as if from my waist down there was pain everywhere. So, anyway, to cut a long story short, I was in a mess. I was in a real mess. And I got up to the ward and told, apart from a couple of pillows behind my head, I was to lie flat and to lie as still as possible. If I needed anything, I wasn't to get up. I was to ask for help. So that's what I did. And I felt so... Things weren't just... They weren't registering with me. I kept touching my tummy and my tummy felt all bloated and something just didn't feel right. Anyway, that was the rest of the Friday, and then the Friday night into the Saturday, and sort of into the, late Saturday, and I wasn't bleeding anymore. So the doctors kept coming every couple of hours just to check me, and nurses were coming, pulse and blood pressure and all that sort of thing. And the focus was to make sure that I didn't bleed, and keep the remaining baby. Well, I remember late Saturday night, I felt particularly yucky. I hadn't had a chance to clean myself up properly, the way that you want to, so that you can settle. I still had, to be honest, I'd lain in bed, I still had my top and my bra on. I'd had them on for 2 days at this point. And I remember there was a nurse going by and she said, "Is everything okay?" And I said, "Oh, yes." And she went, "No sign of any bleeding?" "Oh, no, everything seems fine." "Well, that sounds great. Things are looking good." I went, "Oh, well, that's great." And she said, is there something I can get for you?" And I said, "Oh, I really wish I could get cleaned up." And she said, "Well, do you want a bath?" And I said, "Am I allowed to have a bath?" And she said, "Well, you haven't been bleeding for hours. I think it'll be okay. I'm sure it'll be fine if you go and have a bath." She says, "But don't make it too hot." And I said, "Fine." And I said, "You sure it's all right for me to get out of bed?" "Oh, it'll be fine. You haven't been bleeding for hours and I'm sure everything will be fine." So I got out of bed, put on a robe, went to the bathroom, ran myself a bath, got into the bath, lay back, and within about 5 to 10 minutes, I started this feeling cramping again. And this time it was really, really painful, really painful. And I just remember shouting for the nurse and looking down, and I was bleeding again. And the nurse came through and the ward sister came through, and she just shouted at this, "Who told this patient she could get out of bed?" And this is saying, well, she wanted a bath. And this sister started tearing into this nurse saying, this patient was, lie flat, not to move out of bed and what have you. And the next thing I knew, I was being bundled into a towel, put in a chair, taken back into the ward, put back into bed. And within about half an hour, the doctor came up, examined me and said, "I'm very sorry, but it looks as if you're losing the second baby." So at that point, I just burst into tears. I literally felt my whole world was coming to an end. And I kept thinking about my daughter and how much I wanted to hug her tight. Anyway, they arranged for me to go and have what's called a dilatation and curettage, which is basically emptying the womb of anything that's left. And I was put back into bed. And I remember I literally, and I mean this, I cried all night. I just cried and cried and cried. Anyway, I think I must have cried practically non-stop for a month. And I'd never felt devastation like that in my life. And I remember many a time my little girl would say, "Mummy, hug too tight, hug too tight." And I was literally clinging on to her. Anyway, I'm looking at the time and I'll try and get this over the next 5 minutes. We tried again, and the following year we lost another child. And then the year after that, I got pregnant again, and this time it was my son. And you know, I don't think I moved a muscle for all of that pregnancy. I was so desperate to keep him. And I think it must have been meant for him to be here because he's here. And then, you know, once I'd left my husband and started my new life, and I was with my new partner, who is now my husband, I was 43. And it wasn't planned, but I got pregnant by my partner, and he was overjoyed. And I lost that pregnancy at 12 weeks. And I remember, like I say, by then he was my fiance. It really, really hurt him, really upset him. And he's been great, you know. He was doing everything for me that the ex-husband had never done. Shown care for me and showed concern. Was concerned about, you know, my 2 children. And you just reach a point where you think, what have I done wrong? I wasn't drinking, I wasn't smoking. I was losing weight, I was doing exercises. Obviously not when I was pregnant, but I was trying to live a healthier lifestyle. And you look back and you think these things were just not meant to be. And I know that if I'd had my daughters, I very much doubt my son would be here. So I try to rationalise and make things, everything happening for a reason. I keep bringing it back to that. Everything happens for a reason. But in my mind, I was sort of going down to the pits of hell and not being able to claw my way back up. And I spoke to a couple of people who ran various, you know, forums about women who had suffered miscarriages, and it did help to talk to other people. So one thing I must say I strongly advise is that anyone who's been through this, go and seek counselling, get therapy, talk to someone. Don't sit on your own and just let it fester. You have to do what feels right for you. You're filled with what ifs. You know, what would they have looked like? What colour hair would they have had? What would they look like if they were here now? I mean, my daughters would have been 27. No, older. Nearly 29. I'm sorry now. Or is it 28? I'm sorry. I can't actually remember. I know my daughter was 2.5. She's 30 this year, so no, there would have been 28, I think. But I've just tried not to think about it, and anyway, I have them in sort of like a little heart-shaped box in my head, and every now and again when I feel a bit low, they pop up to visit me, and I do a little fantasy of down sort of what if. I don't know if any of you have done that, but that's what I've done, and talk to them, and they both have names, and I talk to them, and I talk to all the children I've lost, and I tell them I remember them, and that I love them, and that I'll see them again one day. That, you know, they were obviously far too good for this world. I try and try to see a lighter side of it, just to help me cope mentally. Like, maybe I was too much of a crazy mother for them to cope with. I don't know. I don't have a reason for anything. The only thing that mentally keeps me afloat is by saying everything happens for a reason. And that is, I think, my mental get out of jail free card. Everything happens for a reason. And, you know, if hindsight were foresight, or whichever way around it is, then we'd all be psychic and we'd all know what was going on. But we never do, you know. Believe me, if I could, I'd share the lottery numbers with you. And I would. I actually would. I'd give you anybody in the UK who wants to put the lottery on, and if I think I've got the winning numbers, I will share them with you. I'm not greedy. I really am not greedy. I don't even want £1 million. Just, enough to build a custom-built bungalow. Anyway, like I said before, to life and to memories and to coping and to remembering that time is a great healer, and that everything does happen for a reason. And I think those are my coping mechanisms. And I would love to hear how any of you have coped, or whether you think my strategies are helpful ones, or if you have experiences you'd like to share. And if you don't want to share them in the comments, I always put my Twitter handle up if you want to share something with me in strictest confidence, as you know already, because many of you have contacted me and it's all been in strictest confidence. I would never share what I'm told in DM, because I've told you this because I want you to get to know me better, and I want to share my experiences with you. And to let you know I'm human, and things have happened to me, and I have come out the other side, and I'm still hanging in there. But one size does not fit all. My way isn't going to work for everybody. It may work for one or two, but it's not going to work for everybody. It's not like the real wide soul. If you do this, everything will come out singing, dancing, roses for you. No, one size does not fit all. Everybody has things in ways that they need to cope. So I shall say again to you, L'chaim, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are, or the rest of your evening wherever you are. And I shall see you, if not before, I shall see you for midweek folklore on Wednesday. Thank you very much for listening. I love you all, and bye-bye for now.